because we were discussing Barnet earlier because of the strong Jewish vote there, and signs, early signs that Labour vote had been affected and was down. What are your reflections on that, if that is true, Ken?
Let's wait and see, because I think the simple reality is that most people will vote based on issues about income, not these, and the government's economic policy, not about a lot of the trivia that's dominated the news over the last couple of...
Because it has dominated the news.
Oh, yeah, it's terrible.
And it's bound to have had an impact.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure it has. I mean, Sadiq was running 16% ahead in the polls before all that anti-Semitism nonsense blew up. And nationally, we were 5 points ahead of the Tories, not 1. So I think it's definitely been damaging. And I'd say to those Labour MPs who made this into a great issue and demanded my suspension, you've cost us seats all over the country.
Well, John, for example, isn't calling for suspension. He wants you to be expelled from the party.
I've never said that. I've said I want the National Executive Committee to follow due process. And I'm a member of the National Executive Committee. And I think it's important that the due process is pursued. So I've never actually said that.
But would that not be the intention?
Well, it's up
to wait for the fact.
I mean, Ken has the right to go to the National Executive Committee and put his case. I think the Disputes Committee is scheduled to meet in July. There's a process that has to be followed. I think it was the right thing to do, sorry to say it, Ken, to suspend you. I said that not because I've got any sort of bitter axe to grind. I just thought in the circumstances that was the right approach. But there is an NEC process, and as a member of that National Executive Committee, I think that process has to be followed.
Well, OK, given that you said that, and you made that very clear, what do you think the potential impact of Ken's words has been on Labour's campaign?
Well, I mean, look, we are where we are now, and I don't think Labour Party members want to see me and Ken, chewing over this on national TV. Labour Party members hate it when Labour politicians are arguing on TV. It is what it is. Let the NEC process be pursued. Let them look into it. I think in an election campaign you're better talking about the issues on the economy, about the issues affecting the health service, about schools. And by the way, I do think this U-turn on academisation is jaw-dropping now. And it does speak to a bigger thing that is going on. The Tories couldn't get their tax credits changes through. They couldn't get their PIP changes through. They couldn't get their position on child refugees through. They couldn't get their changes to the trade union bill through. This is a Tory government that cannot get its business through the House of Commons. It's a really weak, incompetent Tory government, and we in the Labour Party need to be going after them.
I can't remember any time in my lifetime where a government's had so many defeats in the Commons. And I think Jeremy, by really challenging many of these key issues, has won on a scale that is unprecedented in any other previous Tory government.
Sure.
I mean, just to go back to the row on anti-Semitism, because, Ken Livingstone, you said it was trivia. I just want to remind John Ashworth, actually, who tweeted at the time, "Enough is enough. Ken Livingstone has crossed a line. He doesn't represent mainstream Labour members like me. He has to go." Do you stand by that, John?
Yes, I do. And that's why, when Jeremy suspended Ken, I think that was the right course of action. But I do think it is right and fair and proper that Ken has the opportunity to go to the National Executive Committee, put his case, and they look into it. And that's what the Disputes Committee will do.
A small correction there. I wasn't suspended by Jeremy. I was suspended by the party machine. Don't forget, last year they suspended one of the staff he just appointed.
Let's have a look at the impact, though, on the campaign, because you don't think it's had an impact.
Oh, no, I do think it
has.
Right, yeah.
But your comments directly, rather than the row that you said has been manufactured by other MPs. Because even Sadiq Khan, who, as you say, was further ahead until you made your comments about Hitler and Zionism. He said, "I accept that the comments that Ken Livingstone has made makes it more difficult for Londoners of Jewish faith to feel that the Labour Party is a place for them. And so I will carry on doing what I've always been doing, which is to speak for everyone." He then went on to say, Sadiq Khan, that your comments were appalling and inexcusable and there must be no place for this in our party. He blames you for making his campaign tougher.
I don't blame Sadiq because he was 12 years old when Lenny Brenner published his book about the deal between the Zionist movement and the Nazis. It caused a big stir at the time. Largely everyone's forgotten it. And what's remarkable about this is 6 months ago, the Prime Minister of Israel said exactly what I'd said. Now, no one's going to accuse him of being anti-Semitic.
No, but my question to you, Ken Livingstone, is this helping the Labour Party?
Of course not. But I was asked on a BBC...
So why did you intervene, and why do you continue to intervene?
I was asked in a BBC interview about Adolf Hitler. I set it aside in about 30 words, and what I deplore is that those MPs who demanded my expulsion could have just gone on the internet and found out it's actually true.
Right. I mean, in Scotland, last week, the Scottish Labour leader, Kezia Dugdale, who we've just spoken to, said it unquestionably had an effect. That is, the row about anti-Semitism and your comments. So, actually, they've stopped Labour in Scotland holding on to what little they had. Do you take responsibility for that?
No, I don't take responsibility. If I'm asked...
She says you should. It was on the doorstep.
No, if I'm asked in a BBC interview about Adolf Hitler, I'll answer the question. You won't remember any time in my public career where I've dodged questions like some MPs consistently did all the time. I was asked a question, I stated it, it's true. What's outrageous is those MPs who've been trying to undermine Jeremy, who wanted to damage us at this election, blew this up into a big issue.
Right. I have to say, Ken Livingstone, I was there for that interview, as you know, and we asked you about whether Naz Shah, the Labour MP, was anti-Semitic. We didn't ask you about Hitler and Zionism. You offered those comments and those phrases. We just asked you about Naz Shah.
It wasn't your interview. No, it was on BBC Radio. I was asked about... the question was, is what Adolf Hitler did illegal? Well, killing 6 million people was illegal.
So, but you did offer those comments on our programme too, when we weren't actually asking you about it. All I'm saying to you is, we've got John Ashworth sitting here, listening to you again. By reminding people of those comments, do you think it does the Labour Party good?
Well, the issue's got to be resolved. As John was saying, that the NEC's got to look into this. Will be able to invoke the Prime Minister of Israel for saying exactly the same things. People can go onto the internet and see the Finkelstein interview, which is breathtaking. Very supportive of me. Last week, a Jewish Londoner stopped me on the street and said, "What's wrong with MPs? Don't they study history?"
Well, and so is John McDonnell one of those MPs when he said the scandal over your comments was a setback to the campaign? Is he also one of those campaign MPs who's whipping things up against you?
If someone shows that I said something that wasn't true, I will apologise. But you can't expect someone to apologise for stating the truth.
Right. I mean,
we should denounce MPs and politicians when they lie, not when they tell the truth.
Right.
But, I mean, there's a more basic question, Ken. Do you regret saying those things, given what's happened?
Absolutely. If I'd known what these old Blairite MPs were going to whip this up into, I would have found a way of evading the question.
Not just old Blairite MPs. It's a bit wider than that. John McDonnell's not an old Blairite MP, is he?
Yeah, but he wasn't the one out there calling for my suspension.
No.
But almost all those that were linked to the far-right Progress Group.
Well, I'm not, Ken.
Well, I mean, don't forget, the Progress Group was set up by Lord Sainsbury, big business. It's also funded by the hedge fund managers, not naturally...
No, but Ken Livingstone, there were a whole string of MPs and Labour Party politicians asking for you to go, and it was harming the party, John Ashworth being one of them. So you can't just blame one wing of the party for what has happened to you. And again, the losses go further. Labour losses in Bury, losing 2 out of 3 seats in the borough of Prestwich, which has a large Jewish population. Local councillors blamed your comments directly, saying they caused grotesque offence, and it's caused a backlash against the Labour Party, down to one person, and that's Ken Livingstone.
But go on the internet and look at all those people who are Jewish saying what Ken Livingstone said is true.
But the question is what harm you've done to the Labour Party in this campaign.
I don't think if those right-wing Labour MPs hadn't turned this into a big issue, it would not have been an issue. Almost everybody with a Jewish background knows the history of their nation. Knows what happened in the 1930s. An awful lot of MPs clearly didn't do their history.
But Ken,
let's pause there a second. Sorry, John, because what I want to do is see where we are with the current race, yeah? Well, let's join Tim Donovan, our